Hello everyone, welcome to Niyyah Handcrafted, and thanks for stopping by my channel. I am a candle maker, a soap maker, lotion and potion maker, and in all that making comes a little bit of mayhem with it. So thank you very much for stopping over. If you're following us from over on Instagram, thank you very much. And if you are not, you can at niyyah.handcrafted. It's NIYYAH.handcrafted. We're gonna start out with some candle making because that's what I've been doing for the longest. I've been a candle maker since the mid-90s, but as a hobbyist. So if you received a candle from me prior to 2019, I am sorry. I was just melting down the wax that came from the kits that I just got from wherever. Candles have definitely evolved since then. Number one, I started with pillar candles, which I still do from time to time with beeswax, but I switched to container candles. I started working with 464 wax, and in the process of adding coconut oil in it to try and get smoother tops and better hot throw and all the things, I ended up making my whole new blend of wax. I use my own blend of paraffin-free vegan waxes, which is primarily a coconut soy. I have done the wick testing for my fall line, but I just need to get them in my jars. If you're here, you get to have a little bit more than a sneak peek of what I've been teasing on social media and on my website, which is www.niyyah-handcrafted.com. And so let's take a look at these jars. This is our fall and winter jar. As you can see, it has a beautiful smooth top. That's our coconut wax, and it just behaves really well. It has a really nice hot throw. It always dries smooth. This is our Dragons and Saints candle, and as you can see, there's some dragon scale embeds and some little gold coins and gold teeny bit of an ethically sourced gold mica on the top of those to play with. One of the things that we try to do to reduce our carbon footprint is to get responsibly sourced ingredients as close to home as possible, and we're really lucky that we have a candle and soap making company pretty close to us, Shea and Company in Milwaukee, Oregon. I've been really grateful to have them throughout our candle making journey because we know that there's a lot of concerns about synthetic fragrances, some misinformation, and some stuff that we just don't know. We choose to work with candle companies that are very picky as well about what they're using. So no parabens, no phthalates, no formaldehyde. The wooden wicks that we use, we get from Makesy. The ones that you see in this and the Woodland Trail is a Crackling Booster Wick 3. And it's sourced, that has sustainable sourcing. You really want to consider where you are getting these wooden wicks from. So they have a patent on the technology. So that's one thing if you're getting it from somewhere else. And I haven't used any other company besides, I think when I was testing a kit once, I got just random wicks that did not work with the wax. So my only experience as a candle maker that was selling and testing was with the Makesy wooden wicks, and I find that they're pretty reliable. Know that there is some variation, just like in every candle, you know, in how they burn. PDX Coffee Shop is our number 2 or number 3 seller, depending on the time of the year historically. PDX Coffee Shop actually sold out at a Ramadan market, and I felt like it was the meanest thing I had ever done because we were all fasting, and then you bring in this coffee scented candle. Like it was not a kind choice, but I didn't mind bringing home an empty box. I'm just gonna say that. The reason I emphasize the PDX is because I moved here from the East Coast. I am an espresso person. I did barista work for years as a teenager and again in my 20s in college. Like I just love the smell of a good coffee shop where, you know, there's people in there that are writing, there's poems being constructed, there is the scent of vanilla, just like cream and dark roasted bean in the air. But what makes it a little bit more PDX is the almond. So that kind of element, I feel like I really needed to get it in there. And so that's what makes it a Portland coffee shop. It's amazing. It's great. If you love coffee candles, then you're going to like this one. I used a double boiler where you use these pouring pitchers on your stove in like a bain-marie or water bath, and that method takes forever. And for my wax, it was particularly hard because coconut wax, particularly my blend, I get up to 200 degrees. So with the Presto pot, it makes it much easier because you can just dial your temperature in. And for me to get it to where I need it to go, I usually start in between the M and the 200. I find that it burns just a little bit hot. Just showing my setup. This is the scale that I got from Goodwill yesterday for $5. And my Presto pot is gonna go right in there. Okay, so the first thing I have to do is spritz these with rubbing alcohol. You want to make sure that there's any dust out of the containers. Also, that dust can keep your wick sticker from sticking to the bottom of the jar. Rubbing alcohol is just going to evaporate. It's not going to be part of your candle. So. You'll need clips for your wooden wicks. You insert the wooden wick into the clip, and I order mine right from Makesy. I've used them from Amazon before, but they're just not as sturdy, and it makes my life easier to all order from one place. So I put the wick in the clip, put that on a wick sticker, and adhere it to the jar. And now I've got them in the box that they came in just to keep them organized. If you look into the pot here, you can see that the wax is starting to melt. Yes, I did have a little bit of wax left over in the pot, and that is totally okay to do as long as you're turning your wax melter off when you do that and it's set to the right temperature. But yes, I do burn candles that have been in pots that I reheated. It's not really good to burn it down, to empty the wax melter down and leave it on when it's just empty at the bottom anyway. But there is a cover, a glass cover that comes with it, so I do cover it so it is free from the elements. So, yeah. One other gizmo I gotta talk to you about. This was a gift. This is like a temperature spatula that my friend gave me. What I love about it is I found that my heat gun was pretty inconsistent, especially when I was using the double boiler method. So this was well worth it. This gives me an exact temperature. It works in Fahrenheit and Celsius. So again, I'm trying to get this up to 200, which is going to take a while. So I zero out my scale and then add my fragrance oils right into one of the pouring pitchers. As I said, I'm using some almond from Shea & Company, and then some vanilla and a little bit of a pastry scent right into the pouring pitcher. And then the majority of the blend is the espresso fragrance oil. So if you've followed me on Instagram, you probably know my love relationship with Midwest Fragrance Company. I'm out of espresso, which makes up a good portion of my blend, but I'm waiting patiently because they have a fragrance release coming out like this weekend. So I'm going to order it then with some other exciting fragrances. So along with that and the other fragrance oils, I have put that in my pouring pitcher. And I actually pour the hot wax into a second pouring pitcher separate so I can have an accurate measurement. Then I add that hot wax into the pouring pitcher that already has all my fragrance oil blend in it. At this point, I only stir for, 15, 20, 30 seconds, but I'm usually, saying something about the candle out loud. I really want the candle to burn well. I want the owner to have a bright and beautiful scent that burns safely and that brings some happiness and contentment in their home. Typically somebody with a coffee shop candle might be looking for some kind of vibe, maybe a creative vibe. So I'm hoping that goes up to them. I don't know if it does anything, but I certainly hope that a little prayer or meditation or good energy or whatever you want to call it, it's not going to hurt anything. So here goes. I like to pour right down the wick. I feel like that helps it to get primed. The reason why I have it like this is because one time I left this wax on, and your wax can burn, particularly if it's left at a temperature that is higher than you like. So I always unplug it when I'm done. So I unplug it and then I put it down. Okay, this is the next day. They're really beautifully smooth. Really like these tops. They're not bumpy. Sometimes when I clip the wick, I see a little hang up like right at the base, which is easily pushed down with the heat gun. So it's not really something that I worry about. And a lot of the times it's because I pour the wax down the wick, I think. One tip I have for wicks, I used to trim the wicks and like put them in, but now I don't because I find that they can get themselves off center easily that way. So I leave them and then I'll trim to height after. So there's one tip for you. I just found that they sometimes would lean or something like that, or I found I had to put something there to keep it centered, which was silly because if it's nice and tall, it will stay nice and tall and straight. So there's one tip. So this is the silicone mold embed that I use for PDX Coffee Shop. They're little coffee beans. I would say if you like to use embeds, look out in your thrift stores, look out in buy nothing groups, because I have found some there and they're very easy to clean with just boiling water. So that's one way to upcycle and reuse things. Although I bought this one new, I've found plenty of items for my displays, for my candle making, for my soap making, in buy nothing groups and de-stash groups, and I even have a group locally that I help to form with local candle and soap makers, and we have a little trade going on, so keep an eye out for those. We try to use the most eco-friendly dyes that we can, so we either use the eco dyes from Makesy, and we'd like to try the one from Candle Science. We haven't tried those yet, and these are Flutter dyes, dye chips. And a tip that I have when you're doing small embeds like this is to pour your wax, get it to the coolest temperature that you can still pour it at, and then use a one of these squeeze bottles to squeeze it into the mold. I find that I have really good control when I do that, although this is, you know, always going to be my brown. So that is something that you have to consider. And these are the coffee beans. I think they came out so cute. I'm just melting down the tops with the heat gun so that the little beans can adhere. I have made coffee candles in the past with real coffee beans, but if you have ever smelled a burning coffee bean, it will prevent you from doing so. And we try to be careful about what we put onto the tops of the candles. And because I had that little wax melt mold, I just could not resist. So I'm just being careful to make sure that everything looks super smooth. And then when that's done, I'm going to put a little bit of mica on the top, just a tiny bit for shine. And I use an ethically sourced mica. This is from Mad Micas. And mica can clog the wick, especially cotton wicks. So you're seeing a little bit of fairy dust, but really it's just enough to spritz the top. Don't overdo it here. So when it's still a little bit fluid, I will push the coffee beans just kind of right on the top. Here's a sample of what I came up with. And one of the final touches that I do is I take the tip of a paintbrush and I dip it in a little bit of copper mica from the same company, Mad Micas. And I just gently brush the tops of those beans to give them a little bit of shine. Again, we're not going to put too much because this is going to melt down and become part of the melt pool. So now we're at the editing Niyyah part of the video, and thank you so much for stopping by and watching as we poured PDX Coffee Shop. The star jars that we have will be available around September 1st, although the regular PDX Coffee Shop and our geometric tins are available on both our website and on Etsy, so you could check those out. The links should be on our page and in the description box below. I'll also link the supplies that I used in the description box below. I'm not an affiliate of any of the places that I'm going to link to, although I want to give you a couple of tips here. You will see in the black pouring pitcher, one thing I didn't mention is that coated pouring pitchers, I have noticed that after a while that the coating just starts to chip off. So I would not recommend those for use. The aluminum, just the regular ones, are better. It is really hard to film one-handed, so you don't see me putting the wooden wicks into the clips on the wick sticker in the jar. I use wick stickers. I've had no issues with them. My wicks stay adhered and there's no leaning issues. Some people do use glue guns. The reason why I don't use glue guns is because if I notice that a wick is off-center and I need to placement, it's almost impossible with the glue gun, and then, you know, you have a vessel that might become unusable or clips that are unusable. So I just find it a little bit easier to use those. Our mantra for this YouTube channel is done is better than perfect, so we can get a video out to you weekly. I do save some of the editing clips for you at the end, and so here they are. We will see you next week for some more tips and a little bit more of a peek into our fall line. Okay, take care for now. So I work with, so the waxes that I get, that you know, you can, it's being diffused a little. And I do things. If you're following us from, if you're,